Hey, and welcome back to another Learning Java 2D Game Programming tutorial. So in the last video, we did some refactoring, and we're going to keep doing some refactoring today, but we're going to add some new functionality. So today we are going to be blowing a soap bubble around our NPCs, and they're going to be stuck inside of it, and they're going to be levitating. So let's get to it. In order for this to happen, there are still some things to be done. So going to the GFX package, going to your animation manager. So in here, we're gonna actually keep a Boolean. Sorry, what did that say? I didn't have time to actually read it. Private Boolean looping. So the thing is, this is another class that would actually need to be separated. So this is the animation manager, and whether an animation is looping or not should belong to the animation itself and not the manager. So this means that all animations currently will be looping or not looping, depending on what you set in the animation manager. This isn't probably what we would like in the future, but this works for us now. So we're not going to do the entire refactor so that we can save time, and this will work for what we need. So our humanoids will always have looping animations, all of them currently, but our bubble, which only has one animation, it will not be looping. So that's going to work for us. So let's just make another constructor. Public animation manager. It takes a sprite set, and a Boolean looping. Okay, so now let's just steal all of this, put that in there, say that this looping is equal to looping. And then let's call this with the sprite set and true. So by default, we always loop. And we can say non-looping. Now we need to fix that down here. Control-Alt-V. And we're gonna call that the last index in animation, which isn't actually quite true. It's animation size, right? So animation size, let's call it animation. Let's call it that for now. We know what we mean. So if the frame index is larger than animation size, we're saying start over at index 0. So start the animation from the beginning. We only want to do that if we are looping. Actually, we can do it as a ternary expression. Let's do that. So if we're looping, then set it to 0, we are restarting. But if we're not looping, then we want the last, we want it to be this animation size -1, the index of animation size -1. So the last frame, keep it to the last frame always. So it will keep ticking up, but we will set it back to the last animation frame. And that will fix that. So moving on, let's make our bubble entity. I'm gonna call it a bubble, and it's gonna extend moving entity. Moving entity. Awesome. Let's implement the methods and make a matching constructor. All right. So this is gonna need an NPC controller. We might wanna get some other controller, and that's because we don't want to send in a controller, do we? We do. Yes, we do. Okay. We can give this its own controller eventually, if we want the bubble to be able to do something else rather. We'll see where we go with that, but all right, giving it the NPC controller. Let's also say this controller is equal to controller. All right, and now for the thing that we just did, let's give it a new animation manager, and we're gonna give it a new sprite set. And inside of this sprite set, we're gonna give it the sprite library get image bubble. But also important, we want looping to be false. It is sad, expected 0 arguments. Ooh, all right. Let's make a new constructor in here, which takes an image to be the only animation that it has. So image, new hash map, which means we need to add this image and it needs a name. So let's give it the name default, I guess. Right, and now this actually got even more important. Let's just fix it now. So this get, let's just call it get or get default. It might not be sure that we have a default. Let's just do this for now. If we need to fix it, we will. So if animation sheets contains key name, then do return animation sheets get name, otherwise return animation sheets get default. All right, close that off. Okay, so now we've made an animation manager with this bubble, which has 3 frames and it will stop at the last one. Awesome, awesome. For now, it's not going to do anything when it collides. And in the motion, I mean, we can do motion update with this controller that we have. I don't think we're going to be getting to motions today. We want to decide animation. This will of course give default. I guess in that way it could work. Maybe we don't need the extra. Oh, whatever. This will be good. So what I want my bubble to be able to do is I'm going to give it a method called insert. So here you give a game object that you want to insert into your bubble. So into this bubble. That means we need to take on the game object's position. And we actually need to take on the render offset as well. And we don't have a method for that, so let's generate it. Create method, get render offset, keep memory changes. All right, so return render offset. So that it looks like, so whatever render offset our game object has that we're putting into it, we want it to look like the game object is in the center of our bubble. So we need our bubble to also take on its render offset. And then we say to the game object, set parent this, so that it follows along with us. All right. Is that it? I think so. We'll come back to it if not. Good, we have our bubble. Now we need to move on to some actions. So the first thing I'm thinking is we want something called blow bubble, right? So that's what our player will be doing. We will be blowing a bubble. Blow bubble. It extends action. All right, so implement the methods. And here's what we're gonna want. We're gonna want lifespan in updates. We're gonna want some, right now, humanoid targets. And we're gonna want the bubble that we're blowing. Okay, let's alt insert, create a constructor. Let's just take in the target. So the player is at some point going to say, do action blow bubble with the target that we have inside of our player. So that's going to be set here. Let's set the lifespan. And let's make that 1 second. Let's do that for now. So in the update, let's first of all decrement the lifespan. And if bubble is null, then we haven't started blowing yet. So I'm just gonna say bubble target using the state, and is done. Let's say that it's done if return lifespan in updates is equal to 0. And animation name will be blow. All right, let's make the bubble target, Alt enter, create method. We have the state. So the target, let's see, here's where we want to make the target float or levitate, but we don't have that action yet, so we're gonna have to make it. Let's make the bubble. Bubble is a new bubble. Just give it a new NPC controller right now, and it wants to get sprite library. Okay, we don't have a getter for that yet, so let's create that inside of the state. I don't know why this keeps asking me for stuff. So return sprite library. All right, so we've made the bubble. We want to insert our targets. And we'd like to spawn our bubble. We don't have that yet, so let's make that as well. And most of you are probably familiar with the term spawn, but it's often used in games. Also, I was a little quick. We want this to be general for all game objects. Game object, so this for now will only mean game objects dot add game object. And then we can do other things in here if we want to. So spawn just really means add something to the game. Okay, so we're spawning the bubble. So what we haven't done yet is we haven't made our guy fly. Let's see if the bubble spawns at all. Let's go to our entity controller. This now needs to also answer is requesting action. So like an action button. And that means the NPC must implement this method, but it can always return false. The player will also implement this method, and it will, let's copy one of these and change it to VK, and I'm going to use space. There we go. All right, so now we can answer whether we're pressing space or not. So let's go to our player. And after we've handled the target, let's do handle input. All right, so handle input. What do we do when we handle the input? Let's check. So the movement input is already handled in our moving entity class, or inside of our controller actually. But we can handle the other kinds of input here. So let's check the action button. If entity controller is requesting action, so we've pressed space. Actually, that just reminded me the player controller is currently pressed. It is pressed, so it doesn't spam this action. All right. If we are requesting action, and if target isn't null, we have a target, then we want to perform new blow bubble using the target. All right, so this should blow a bubble at the target. Let's see if this works. So walking down here, pressing space, it absolutely failed. So it says concurrent modification exception in state 41 in game objects. So that means that two things are trying to get at this list at the same time, and it does not like that. And I actually think that it's this for each method is locking it. It's locking our list from being used, and we can actually fix it by using a plain old indexed loop instead. So actually, let's do that. Let's make something called update game objects. All right. right, and I'm actually gonna just delete that. And inside here, let's just make a plain old int I is equal to 0. Game objects dot size I plus plus. Plain old indexed loop. So now we can add to our game objects while we are looping over it. Let's just say game objects get I update this. If you try that again. And it's still a little sad, but something else is sad. The collision box says nay, and I'm sure that has something to do with the blow bubble, or actually rather we removed some stuff from in the last episode from our moving entity into our humanoid, stuff like collision box size, which I'm quite sure that we are going to need. So by default, in the moving entity, by default, let's give it the size get width and size get height. So it's the same as the size. All right. Ah, there we go. But as you can see, it works. So we are actually standing here blowing the bubble and the bubble is popping up. Our NPC is just disappearing. There's a reason for that. We are parenting it, but we haven't changed its position. So say that this is position 300 by 300, just for the sake of argument. And it's always counted from top left corner, right? And now we're parenting it, but if we don't reset its position, it's going to be 300 by 300 pixels from the parent, which is already here, you know. So it will be way off. So we actually need to set its position to 0. So inside of our parent, do we want to do that? Yes, let's do it. Inside of this set parent, and let's just rename it from set parent to just parent. Oops, sorry. Because set parent implies that that's all we're doing. Parent, and now I'm talking about the word parent, or sorry, the verb parent. Parent something to. This could have more things inside it than just set. We're not just setting the value, but we're doing the action of parenting. So for us, the action of parenting also means that this dot position is cleared. Let's see if that did it. Yes, it did. However, of course, now it walked off because it's walking the same as usual. It's just getting its position is relative to its parent's position, so it looks the same. We can fix this by giving it the levitate action. So let's create a new action called levitate, which is an action. All right. What do we want for this? We want to return the levitate animation name. And let's just say that it's never done for now. And right now we're not even gonna update. This will be enough. That will make it not walk away because it has an action, so it's not walking. And it will have the levitate animation. Yes. So the target, perform new levitate inside of the blow bubble. And there we go. It is levitating. There are some stuff that we want to do. Maybe we want to render it on top. I'm just gonna check. Also, we don't want to be able to target our NPCs when they're already inside the bubble. We don't want to be able to put them inside of many bubbles. And the way that we can fix it is we don't want to target it. And Not sure how I want to do this, but I'm gonna, just to fix this quickly, sorry, I just wrote effect. It's hard to talk and do stuff sometimes. I'm gonna make an effect called untargetable for now. I'm not sure if I want to solve this way later, but we're gonna do that. We're gonna say integer max value. So this is gonna just act as a tag. This way, if we go back to the blow bubble, when we give it the levitate, we can also add effect new untargetable. This one, let's see, this one's the lifespan in, sorry, that's not, let's remove this, we're not using it. So this will just act as a tag. So we're gonna check when inside of our player, when we're finding our closest NPC, we want to filter NPCs which are not affected, is affected by untargetable. There we go. That should have fixed that issue. All right, so now we can't target him again. Of course, when we walk through him, it looks a little weird. We'd like for him to render on top of us. So we can do that as well. Let's do that inside of the blow bubble. So inside of the update, if is done, that means that we are just about to remove this blow bubble. So the bubble has been blown completely up. Then we'd like to do set render order, and we're gonna have to generate this method. Let's set that to 6, and let's create that method inside of the game object, render order, and say this dot render order is equal to render order. And also, let's also do that with the bubble. Bubble set render order 6. So once we're finished blowing the bubble, they will then be rendered on top of us. So it'll look like they're floating above us. Right? Now when we walk under it. So as you can see, maybe we want to do it earlier because otherwise, I don't know, it looks quite good. So I think that this is all that we have time for. In the next video, we might want to see what we can do about making them maybe soar off somewhere, or yeah, we'll see what we do with it. But now at least they're inside bubbles, they are floating around. Ooh, actually, look at this. I can spam this. I can totally spam. If these walk here, and that's not what I want. So there's one thing more that I want to fix. Let's do it now. I'm gonna add something to my action called, it's not gonna be abstract. I'm gonna do this, Boolean is interruptible. Okay. And all right, so this is now gonna have some implementation. Private, no, protected, Boolean interruptible. And let's alt insert, make a constructor. Don't take that in. So interruptible is gonna be true. And in is interruptible, return interruptible. Okay, so now you don't have to, implement this, but that will work out of the box. However, this levitate, we want to, first of all, the levitate we do want to not be interruptible. So interruptible is equal to false. And blow bubble, we want that to not be interruptible. So interruptible is equal to false. And then we want to be able to use this. So let's go into our humanoid, and when we say perform, then we say if we are already doing an action, so if action is sorry, this action is present. So we are performing some action already. And this action get is interruptible. And we actually want to do it like this. If it isn't interruptible, then return. So now we're saying if we have an action and you can't interrupt that action, then we're just returning. We're not setting a new action. Otherwise, we'd have to say either if we don't have an action, then set the action, or if we do have an action and we can interrupt. So that would be more code. So we're doing it this way. But that should work. Now I don't think we can spam anymore. And we cannot. You can't blow a new bubble until the old one is already bubbled. So awesome. That will be all for this video. Oh my gosh, it got really long, but we got a lot of functionality going. So I'm quite happy about this. So thank you for watching, and I will see you soon. Hej då!